certainly is the budget that was presented earlier on by Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. And reactions have been coming through from opposition parties and other bodies. Well, in the studio right now is the Executive Director of the South African NGO network, SANGONet, Mr. Kenneth Tlaka. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to you.
Thank you, Peter, and good evening to the viewers.
All right, so we've been getting reaction from various people because they've got various interests in the budget itself. As the South African NGO network, what are your first impressions of what you heard today?
Look, I mean, from our perspective, the first impression is that the minister has done very well in terms of presenting the budget, considering the political circumstances that he and his ministry they're in. And of course, when you look at quite a number of issues, the budget for us, it has been poor, considering the fact that they looked into the grants issue, the grants have been increased, and from the perspective of the NGO sector, the minute you deal with the grants, you are automatically also trying to deal with the burden that the NGO sector has to deal with on the ground. But of course, the sad part of it, of the budget, is the fact that we expected something to be mentioned about the NGO sector. And unfortunately, the NGO sector hasn't been a priority in the budget speech.
What did you expect him to say?
Look, the country doesn't have a proper funding model for the NGO sector. And our understanding is that the NGO sector, it's more important in the sense that it's dealing with the community on the ground. There are services that have been rendered by the NGO sector, but unfortunately they are not being considered well. And that's why we expected that there should have been a certain portion that has been put for the NGO sector. We understand that the NGO sector currently is been sitting within the Department of Social Development. That's also an NDA. But unfortunately, we feel that that's not enough. That's why the funding model for the country, for the NGOs, is very critical.
You want a minister of NGOs? What are you saying?
We don't need a minister of NGOs. The expectation was that some of the funding for the NGO sector should be sitting within the presidency. And why the presidency is because most of the issues that are being dealt by the NGOs is not only about social issues, it's not only about education and health, but there's a variety of issues that the NGOs are dealing with. And that's why in our case, we feel that the NGO sector's funding should be sitting within the presidency's office.
But shouldn't these fall with the departments, though, that are looking at those particular issues? Because they come to the NGOs for assistance. Only if they can't deal with certain things, they extend those services to NGOs that can help them.
Look, when they sit within the particular department, at the end of the day, we are not able to see what is happening on the other department. That's why we get frustrated when it comes to pieces that are coming within the departments. And we are saying, even if we put it within the departments, but we still need a funding model for the NGOs in the country, where we'll be able to say at least NGOs are also covered within the budget of South Africa. Because now, it's like the NGOs are not they're not existing anyway. And that's where the problem is with us. Though we consider the fact that when you deal with the community on the ground, the poor people, you are also assisting the NGOs, relieving the burden that the NGOs are sitting with on the ground.
All right, so what can he do? He's only got a certain amount of money in his budget. It's one of the tightest ones that he's been able to manage. Once he's given his departments, you're saying that he should find more money above and beyond that?
Automatically, when you give it to departments, there is a portion that is sitting within the department for the NGO sector. And we are saying whatever that goes to those various departments should be brought together with a possible funding model that will be sitting within the presidency's office. And from there, then we'll be able to see the figures, we'll be able to monitor how are things happening. But as we are speaking now, it's very difficult for us to be able to monitor the progress.
Okay, you're worried about the amount that should be due to you. Is it coming through to you if it goes via the departments?
We are worried about that, but also we are worried about is that money really going to those NGOs? Because if we are not able to account for it, then it becomes a challenge. And we feel that somehow, somewhere, even the parliament should know what is really happening with the NGO funding on the ground.
Ministers talked and said that he's concerned about growth, but transformational growth, bringing that gap between inequality to make it smaller. Do you think that this budget speaks to that? Because you're dealing with those people on the ground where inequality hits them the most.
I don't think it deals with that much. Look, I mean, we were trying to also analyze between the budget speech and the president's speech. You know, the radical transformation, we wanted to see it more on the budget speech, because it's one other thing to be able to deal with the principles and the objective part of it, but we also need to see it on the budget. How does it translate to that matter? But we are not able to see how it's going down to the people on the ground. The expectation was that maybe the minister should have said something that relates to the poor on the ground, so that we are able to deal with it.
He said that we need to work together, and that means the NGOs. If this radical economic transformation needs to happen, what is it that you could be doing had you more funds?
The NGOs are sitting on the ground. They are the next institution next to the community. And we believe that we'll be able to do a lot with the community in terms of making sure that there's communication flow, in terms of making sure that the inputs from the community are able to filter up. But one challenge is that the NGOs are being brought on board when the issues, like when you look at the student matter, the minister spoke about the NGOs, to say the NGOs will also form part of the stakeholders that are dealing with the student matter. But unfortunately, the key challenge for us is that how many NGOs that are within that particular level are still left? Because most of the NGOs are collapsing, they are closing down. And it's because we are not able to financially support those NGOs in the country. And that poses a serious challenge. That's why you'll go to most communities, the NGOs will not be able to put their comments for public hearings. They won't be able to participate easy because they are not resourced.
All right. So overall, you'd wish that you had a minister in the presidency for NGOs, but that the minister has done as best as he could in this particular budget. So not terribly disappointed. However, more could be done. That's your bottom line. Yeah,
no, we are not terribly disappointed, but we feel that there's more that could be done. Considering the NGO sector, because we feel that the NGO sector is not covered in any way.
All right. Well, let's hope the President has been watching tonight's edition and that he will consider your request, and he might even make you the Minister of NGOs in the presidency. That's Mr. Kenneth Tlaka, who's the Executive Director of the South African NGO network, SANGO. And that's where we're going to leave it for